When you picture the Western Front or the Eastern Front during World War II, the first things that come to mind are mud, barbed wire, and soldiers shivering through freezing nights in trenches. Yet, behind the horror and chaos, soldiers and engineers developed subtle, ingenious techniques to survive extreme cold. One of the least known but most effective was the heat pocket, a method of creating small, localized zones of warmth in trenches that could mean the difference between frostbite and survival. Today, we'll explore how these heat pockets worked, why they were effective, and how understanding them can help modern survivalists, historical enthusiasts, or even cold-weather campers today. Trenches were notoriously cold and damp. Soldiers often slept in narrow dugouts or simply on the frozen ground, protected by minimal canvas or earthworks. Traditional methods like blankets or simple overcoats offered only limited protection, as moisture from snow, ice, and breath quickly saturated clothing, drawing heat away from the body. Fires were often, just really impractical, as open flames could attract enemy attention or, consume precious fuel. The challenge was creating a localized environment that trapped body heat and minimized exposure to wind and moisture, and that's where the heat pocket came in. Unlike ordinary insulation, the heat pocket wasn't about covering the entire trench. Instead, it focused on creating a small, controlled microclimate where heat could accumulate naturally. By understanding airflow, body heat, and material properties, soldiers could effectively trap warmth in the area immediately surrounding themselves or their equipment. The basic principle was surprisingly simple. Form a semi-enclosed space that retained body heat while limiting contact with cold surfaces and incoming drafts. Soldiers often dug slight depressions in the trench floor or built low walls of sandbags, earth or timber around their sleeping area. Within this small enclosure, a combination of blankets, wool coats, and ground insulation created layers that trapped warm air rising from the body. By positioning themselves carefully and arranging layers strategically, soldiers could significantly increase their immediate thermal comfort without relying on open fires or heavy fuel consumption. Materials mattered immensely. Wool, felt and hessian sheets were preferred for insulation because they retained heat even when damp, and natural fibres also allowed limited airflow to prevent condensation build-up. Soldiers would often create overlapping layers that acted as thermal buffers. A bottom layer protected against conductive heat loss to the frozen ground, the middle layer trapped rising body heat, and the top layer blocked wind and retained warmth. The result was a tiny pocket of comfort in an otherwise frozen environment. One of the secrets of the heat pocket was managing airflow. Trench winds could carry freezing air into every corner, rapidly cooling soldiers no matter how many blankets they had. Engineers and experienced troops learned to position coverings and earthworks to deflect drafts while still allowing minimal ventilation. Small gaps or vents were left intentionally to prevent moisture buildup, which could otherwise lead to wet clothing and hypothermia. This balance between sealing off cold and allowing moisture escape was a defining feature of effective heat pockets. Modern survivalists can take a similar approach. Create small, semi-enclosed sleeping or resting spaces, layer insulation carefully, and, always consider airflow. Even a simple tent or tarp can benefit from localized heat pocket principles if used strategically, with windbreaks and insulation layers beneath and around the occupant. One of the advantages of the heat pocket was, efficiency. Soldiers could rely primarily on their own body heat and small sources like chemical heaters, hot water bottles, or just a little bit of wood fuel. Because the pocket concentrated warmth in such a small volume, even modest heat sources became, honestly, highly effective. In some cases, several soldiers would share a single heat pocket by arranging their bodies and blankets together in coordinated layers. This created a shared microclimate that, significantly reduced overall heat loss. The principle extends directly to modern cold weather survival. Smaller insulated spaces are far easier to warm than large open areas. Sleeping bags, bivouac shelters or tents that mimic the heat pocket concept by minimizing air volume and layering effectively retain warmth far more efficiently than, frankly, just adding more bulk or fuel. The World War II heat pocket, teaches us that survival in extreme cold is less about luxury and more about understanding physics, materials, and positioning. It really demonstrates that even in dire conditions, soldiers could use clever techniques to amplify body heat, protect against drafts, and survive harsh winters with minimal resources. The same principles honestly apply today. Controlling air volume, layering insulation, managing moisture, and deflecting wind can turn a marginal shelter into a comfortable and safe microclimate. For anyone interested in historical survival techniques or modern cold weather preparation, studying these methods offers both inspiration and practical strategies. The heat pocket, in particular, shows that ingenuity often outweighs equipment, and small adjustments can have life-saving effects. If exploring these forgotten World War II survival strategies excites you, do subscribe to the channel and share this video. Preserving these lessons keeps history alive and equips new generations with the knowledge to survive and thrive in the coldest conditions.